All right. Hey, welcome to Storytime with Gena. I'm your host, Gena, and tonight I am joined by Spangle Bear, as always. Hi. Just besides Spangle Bear, we have some awesome, fun guests tonight. We have Josh Byer.
Hello.
Who has offered to come in and chat on Storytime with Gena. And Greg.
Well, let's be honest. He didn't offer.
He did, though.
He was forced to bring an offering.
No, we'll get into how it all went down in just a second. But let me first introduce Greg Lentz.
Hello, everyone. And by the way, it involved Craigslist and several dollars being exchanged.
Right. No, Gena's only a food whore. Actually, go ahead and tell the people how you got yourself invited on the show tonight, Josh.
I offered enchiladas.
He sure did. He contacted me and said, I'd like to be on the show. I'll bring enchiladas.
And they were really, really good.
They were exceptionally good.
By the way, everyone, dibs on the leftovers. Boom.
Boom. For the win. I've been telling these boys since we started recording We Are Libertarians together that I was going to get us fed every night. And so far, I'm doing okay. Greg joins us Greg is a co-host of mine and Spangle's on We Are Libertarians, another show that we do here on the We Are Libertarians network, which is tied into... In fact, if you found this show, there's not a doubt in my mind that you're a listener to We Are Libertarians.
Yeah. If you want to get any of the great podcasts on the WAL Radio Network, go to WAL-radio.com.
We're actually hoping to be joined later on in the show by a couple of other guests. One is Nina Bachman-Fagan, and she will only be joining us if we can catch her. She is on her way out to Sturgis right now on the back of a Harley. And the last time I touched base with her, she was somewhere near Jackson, Minnesota, I think. So here's to hoping Nina can get Wi-Fi to join us and chime in later. And we also have a guy named Ruben Benzel who is joining us from Indianapolis remotely. So... lots of cool content today. Oh, hey, Ruben, are you there?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Introduce yourself. Say hello.
I am a high school math teacher, actually, at Emmerich Manual High School down on the south side, and it's one of the turnaround high schools, and I hope to, kind of present my story a little bit on education.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll give you a chance. We'll give you a chance to chime in later. Can't wait to get your input. Let's see, what were we going to chat about today? What's going on in the world? Greg, what do you think?
Greg?
You should see his eyes.
Greg's like, I'm just here for the beer and the enchiladas.
Yeah, I just came. I didn't know I was going to have to perform. But what's going on in the world? We got Rick Perry firmly inserting himself in the female vaginas of the state of Texas.
Oh, right. But wait a second. Generally, the rule for Storytime with Gena is we avoid politics. However, we're going to stretch that a little bit tonight. We're going to talk some politics. Some of them will be factual. Some of them will be fictional. This one, though, is a pretty big story because our first topic, if as I recall, was Texas, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So you were going into the Rick Perry. Go ahead and
I was just saying, Rick Perry, he's a ladies' man. He decided he was going to firmly insert himself in every vagina in Texas.
Nice.
Through law. I mean, it's not much different than Genghis Khan, quite frankly.
And so go ahead and fill us in on what happened there.
He has a bill. It restricts abortions after 20 weeks. Trying to get it passed. There was a big hubbubaloo going on in the Texas House about this bill. It finally got passed. I believe earlier this week or maybe even today, but it was filibustered by a woman named Wendy Davis, who became a bit of a martyr for women's rights in the state of Texas.
I do remember reading something about that. Wasn't she on her feet for like 8 hours or something?
10 hours. And because she spoke so long, she was able to actually get the bill, filibuster it, not completely, but through procedural acts, they weren't able to get it passed on the first try.
Well done. Well done, Wendy.
Well done, Wendy Davis.
Very proud. Although I did have some of my more catty gay friends comment about her shoes. Apparently her footwear was atrocious.
I mean, you can be for abortion rights, but at least be a style icon.
Yeah, I know. If I was on my feet for 10 hours, you can bet your sweet ass I'd have some Nikes on too. I'm not mad.
Some strap-up New Balances.
Actually, in my case, they'd probably be knee-high Chuck Taylors.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know this was a hipster podcast.
I've seen those.
Ouch.
They're nice. Not as nice as the leather boots with the cop outfit.
Actually, Spangled Bear speaks the truth. He has seen me in both pairs of footwear.
I've seen her in all varieties of outfits.
Oh, my.
Go to theuncontrollables.com and listen to the last podcast about Gena's exploits. That's quite a story.
Well, to be fair, they're not really my exploits. Those are Maya's exploits. Maya decided to try something new, and as a friend of hers, Spangled Bear thought it would be awesome to fuck with her mind. And as a friend of his, I thought that was an amazing idea. So Spangle got a hold of me, and he said, Maya's experimenting, and I'm going to go pound on her door and cop knock. And I was like, that is an amazing fucking idea. Hold on, because I have a cop's costume. And then I showed up, and I thought I had to scrape his jaw off the floor because I failed to mention it was a kind of naughty cop's uniform.
It was a sexy cop outfit.
Yeah,
So
a little bit.
Maya was greatly pleased.
But
Did you get paid?
No, I don't need to get paid. It was like I got paid in enchiladas tonight. I got paid in a one-man costume party in the middle of July that night.
She was outside smoking, and she went out to get something from her car, and like this caravan of white trash drove by, and they're like, "Yeah, get it, getting over."
That's a fact.
And then she said, "Hey, Dad."
She's like, "Hey, Dad."
Yeah. No,
Daddy, you got my cigarettes.
I actually am a sucker for a costume party. That's a little-known fact about me. In fact, I always thought that another little-known fact about me, or maybe it's making its rounds these days, is that when I was in 4th grade, I decided that it was my destiny to become the first woman president of the United States, obviously. And I'm not the only one who stepped away from 4th grade with the same delusions of grandeur, because I had 2 of my classmates, so 2 of the young men that I went to 4th grade with, have also run for office.
Did they wear a sexy cop outfit when they ran for office?
No, they failed.
See?
That being said, though, I always thought it would be fun to, what would I do if I were in the White House? Like, how would the White House be any different because Gena Martinez lived there for 4 years? And one thing that I can guarantee you without a doubt is that there would be an annual costume ball at the White House from my administration forward. Could you imagine how much fun that would be? Like, all of your foreign diplomats and dignitaries showing up with in costumes. Like, who could you imagine? Throw out an example.
Well, no, Warren Harding was a swinger. So you would have been fantastic in the Harding administration.
Our first gay president, James Buchanan, he was quite a dandy.
He was quite the dandy.
Yeah.
I believe you two used to sip bourbon late at nights. Am I incorrect on that?
Yes, because I am 473 years old.
Well, I mean, as an estimate, I was close. No big deal. But I can.
I like how you really gayed me out with James Buchanan there.
I did. I'm sorry, I threw you under the bus. Are you familiar with how Andrew Jackson had that wheel of cheese where visitors would come in, and if it had been out too long, it would get bad? That meant there hadn't been enough of the people coming in the White House. In my mind, when you said that about the Gena Martinez White House, I pictured the bong of the people. That if the cherry went out, there hadn't been enough of the people in the White House.
If the puff give.
Yes. If this cherry goes out, we haven't had enough protesters. Okay, people?
All right, I want more of your asses chained to my fence right now,
Now
because I'm sure there's something I'm doing wrong.
Somebody go get me some Doritos, okay?
Doritos and Mountain Dew, because they are a exclusive pair.
You're like the Michelle Obama nightmare. Doritos and Mountain Dew.
Let your kid play video games and play on a swing set. Like, this is the way it needs to go. Actually, that's the guise under which Joshua got in here today. He said that he wanted to discuss was it censorship in video games, right?
Yes.
And I'm kind of interested. What type of points were you hoping to make about that?
Well, I didn't really have anything planned for tonight to talk about that. It's just something that I'm...
No, I just want to hear your heart drive. Tell me about it.
Well, it's not censorship in video games, it's censorship in general.
Okay.
I'm very much against any censorship, whether it be FCC or MPAA or just any of it in general. I
You just don't think anything should be censored whatsoever?
No.
Okay.
And what got me thinking about that is I was listening to your podcast from either last week or the week before. You were talking about the raising of your child and the use of language.
Right.
And yeah, so that's really where all that came from. Is I thought, and I agree with you completely on that.
Right. Oh, awesome. I'm glad we got a chance to at least throw that out there because I know it's a subject that's near and dear to your heart. And oh, wait a second. I know. We opened with Texas, what the fuck, and I totally forgot to blast the case that got me on Texas, what the fuck, and that is Greg Lentz. You might be able to help me here. I do not know because you follow the news better than I do, but there was a guy in Texas who apparently ordered an escort via Craigslist, and when she showed up, she refused to put out, so he shot her. And was acquitted because she had guaranteed services and not fulfilled them.
Sure.
Are you for real? Like, what the fuck?
Oh, are you against this?
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of executing prostitutes who don't put out.
Here's the thing, is when you abandon the law, you're no longer protected by it. So then it becomes, voluntary.
Is that what's going on here? I mean, is that the argument? Do you?
No, that's it's horrible, obviously, but I don't know how you handle that. Do you?
I mean, you put the motherfucker in jail for murder.
For sure you do. For sure you do.
But he was acquitted by a jury of his peers who said...
Is that theft?
Is it theft? No, I think it's more of a deterrent to future earnings more than anything. So there should probably be some sort of civil restitution to the family.
Well, I don't know. It disturbed me to think that a person could be executed for not putting out as a prostitute. It
can't be that. It has to be a technicality throwout. That has got to be.
Well, as I understand, he was acquitted by a jury of his peers.
Yeah. If it's one of those cases where if the evidence was obtained illegally, then that can't be presented as a portion of the case. I mean, honestly, I had heard that, but I try to avoid any kind of prostitution and gunshot stories I see.
Are you afraid the NSA is checking in on your Googleage?
Well, I'm afraid that I'm going to show up one day, quite frankly.
All right, so here I have a little bit of a story on it. And again, Spangle's favorite, Think Progress, which is always known for its accuracy. You should see the eyebrows in the room going up.
Nothing says quality journalism like Think Progress.
So,
at least get with Raw Story or Huffington Post. I can stomach that.
So wait a second. Raw Story's okay, but Think Progress isn't?
According to Firedog Lake.
I just got to know how this goes down.
Think Progress writes stories with...
How about Upworthy?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so a Texas jury acquitted a man for the murder of a woman he hired as an escort after his lawyers claimed he was authorized to use deadly force because she refused sex. Ezekiel Gilbert shot Lenora Ivy Frago in the neck on Christmas Eve. Fucking A, on Christmas Eve. After she denied his request for sex and wouldn't return the $150 he had paid her. According to the San Antonio Express News, I'm sorry, I guess that was a comma. Under Texas law, an individual is authorized to use deadly force to retrieve stolen property at night. And Gilbert's lawyers cited that provisions as justification for Gilbert's action, reasoning that Frago had stolen $150 from him by taking money without delivering sex. So, in the police interview played for jurors, Gilbert never mentions anything about a theft, a detective told the San Antonio News. Frago, who was only 21 years old, was critically injured and died several months later. So, apparently, because she accepted the $150 and he alleges did not put out, he felt justified in shooting her, and this jury in Texas felt justified in acquitting him for her murder, although he admits to it on the stand. Texas, what the fuck? So, somebody who's not an alleged feminist or accused of feminism, please grab the microphone and explain to me where we're going with this.
Okay. Kid walks into a store. Not a kid. No, I don't want to say kid because then people sympathize with children. A man walks into a store.
Hitler walks into a store.
Hitler walks into a store and picks up
a bottle of Perrier.
A bottle of Perrier and starts running out the front door with it.
By all means, fucking shoot him if you're in Texas.
Okay. And would you say that guy gets acquitted of charges?
Fuck no. Like, I would say that guy gets thrown in jail for killing an individual over an infraction. I mean, there's such a thing as...
stole his property.
I mean, yeah. Could you? But
He violated
this is
the
the
NA
United States of America.
He violated the non-aggression principle by stealing his property. So when you
I
violate,
feel like I'm being trolled on my own fucking podcast.
when you violate the non-aggression principle, then you accept the risks that might occur, which could be death.
In what universe is that an acceptable response?
The Milky Way.
All right. Well, welcome to the Milky Way, kids, where Texas is the
Milky Way is
motherfucking
not a universe.
capital. It is its own universal.
It's a galaxy.
I don't know. I don't know what the universe is called other than the universe. I don't know if there's more universes.
Isn't there like a Futurama episode with the multiverse boxes?
I'm just saying if you're going to steal or murder or do anything that...
But she wasn't there to steal.
Right.
She, according to this admitted murderer, he gave her money and she didn't give him sex. Now, is prostitution legal in Texas? Not to my knowledge.
No.
So it's not as though they could have engaged in a legal contractual exchange.
But you could say that she was stealing money from him. She was stealing property.
No, she received property that he willingly gave over. He never says that she forced him to give the money. All he says is that she took the money and then did not offer sex.
So it's fraud. That would be...
I mean, let's put it this way. Let's say your sister went out on a date with somebody who feels like he purchased her time by buying her dinner. She goes home with him. He doesn't put out. He shoots her in Texas, acquits her. So let's remove the prostitution element from this entirely.
Right.
Let's say that this was a date where this man feels as though he's purchased her time in our patriarchal society.
Oh, boy.
At what point does this become an issue?
Greg. She's going to
Greg, be my resident. Be my resident
Republican,
asshole.
my resident asshole. I honestly, it's not that. It's that.
Greg, tell us about your white privilege in this patriarchal
So this one time when I
Put
shot
your
this
penis
hooker
on it,
when she
Greg.
wouldn't put out,
Right.
No, it's, quite frankly, the only problem I see is there's no legal recourse for blue balls. I mean, if there were, she'd be alive. He would have his money, and we'd be all set. But,
Gena would be up for murder.
quite frankly, we need to pass a law. No, it's horrible. Is what it is. It's horrible. I mean, for a guy, you can't go shoot a girl because she doesn't put out.
Right.
I'd have 35 murders on my list
There'd
if
be
that
so
was the
many.
case.
There'd be so many widowers.
Oh my gosh, we wouldn't even need to talk about China's one birth policy if that were the case.
No, this is clearly totally outside the bounds, and everybody makes. He shouldn't have been acquitted because he committed murder, but you accept certain risks when you live a certain lifestyle. I mean, for instance, Greg could. Never mind.
But most people don't
really
choose
bad.
that lifestyle because it's glamorous. Most people end
Right.
up in that lifestyle because they're in a certain
And
set of
they're
circumstances.
hooked on drugs usually.
Just
Sometimes.
curious, are you sure this is a real story, or
Yes.
is this something taken out of the new Grand Theft Auto game?
Right, exactly. Like, for real, it does sound like a moment out of Grand Theft Auto where you steal the right car and you kill the right hooker and you get the right thing unlocked and some kind of magical... You can take her around the corner and have a digital blowjob. I mean, what the fuck is happening? So, I mean, I'm with you on not censoring video games, but there is a limit at which it becomes terrifying, almost as terrifying as reality, which I guess really puts me off. That's an interesting parable here. I didn't do that on purpose, audience. Isn't that beautiful?
That's why this is Storytime with Gena.
Welcome to Storytime with Gena. Spanglebear, tell me a story.
Well, there once was a podcast where Gena moved on to the second topic.
Oh, yes. We were going to talk about education, and for this, we will absolutely need to unmute our Ruben buddy on the phone. And let me see if Nina is within.
I am here.
Hey there, Ruben.
So, I think if we want to reform education, then we should censor every video game in the book. Take every video game system away from the students and all the distractions. And
I just want to
their
say
education system would be
I
fixed.
learned how to read before I ever got into school from video games.
Yeah,
You can thank Final Fantasy for that.
I can concur with that. I've got a little man who learned how to read continue before he could actually, before he could recognize Q.
Yeah.
Well, Brain Quest and games like that are good.
I have severe troubles with math, as my bank account will attest.
There is not a person in this room no, we've got one numbers guy for sure, and Greg, you might be competent at math, but I am completely...
I own a credit union.
Yeah, he owns a credit union. So
I am completely math illiterate. Once you add letters to math, I'm like cross-eyed and it's purple.
yeah, like the word questions. I'm like, why are there words in math? So I had these video games where like little aliens were flying around, adding and subtracting and multiplying things, and like I learned a lot of math from that video game, but. I didn't learn much math from Max Payne.
Right, and you're not going to learn enough math from Killing the Hooker and Grand Theft Auto.
Right.
And
But that's exactly why those games aren't meant for children.
Right.
I mean, nowhere. To me, it's surprising that so many children do play those games because you don't see them marketed towards children. Not like Fruit Loops are. Not
Right.
like a lot of movies are.
But it's part of our culture, and
Yes.
once you live with a child is going to imprint on you. So if you, as the parent, take the time as an adult, who the game is marketed to play that video game, even if the child is not allowed to play it, believe me, they will form almost an obsession with wanting to play it. For example, my kid is not allowed to play Halo. He's never been allowed to play Halo because it's the most violent video game his daddy plays on a regular basis. I wouldn't allow him to play Halo because I played Halo one time and I got so fucking pissed off I about punched some guys in the face. I apparently am completely incapable of playing a first-person shooter. I was walking around into corners and walls with my head facing up towards the ceiling. I could not figure out how to fire a shot, and all of these guys that worked with Tony at Circuit City were coming up behind me and blowing me in the head with grenades, and it was like nothing but me respawning, them finding me and blowing me up. So I got so angry with this stupid game that I was just to the point of violence, and maybe that's why I hate on Halo so hard.
The technical term is rage quit.
Okay, so I rage quitted all over that shit. And so I never would let Vinny play it. And all I heard from the time that he was about 3 until even now is, my daddy plays Halo, but I'm not allowed to play it because my mommy says it's too violent.
Well, as we talked about last episode, your kid thinks that he's 45 and he should have the rights of a 45-year-old, even though he's 5.
My kid just knows that he's human, and there are certain inalienable rights that he's
right. Like I will
he's
not be
entitled to.
I will not be disrespected by adults who are telling me what to do for my own good.
There's a little bit of truth in that.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. We were going to education, though. Josh, so tell me about what went down close to your heart in regards to this third grade testing situation.
Okay, there is a little girl that I know. Her name is Alyssa. And she started the third grade this year, and at the beginning of the year, she struggled. Now, earlier this year, all third grade students had to take a new test called the I Read 3 test. It is a test of, I believe, 40 questions in 72 minutes. And the stipulations for this test is, if you don't pass this reading test, you do not go to the fourth grade.
And they take it in the beginning of the year?
I believe you take it in December.
Okay.
I'm not positive of that, but I'm pretty sure that's it. Well, we found out probably in about January, February, Alyssa seriously needed glasses.
Okay.
She failed the test by 15 points. It's a 400-point exam. She failed it by 15 points, and we found out that she needed glasses. And previous to getting the glasses, she was struggling not just in reading, but in all classes.
Right, because she couldn't see the chalkboard.
Exactly. I mean,
I was about that age when I got glasses.
It was a lot. It was a lot worse than anybody thought. We didn't know she had a problem with seeing, with sight, but it was a lot worse. I mean, it was really bad.
Right.
But we got her glasses and everything. Her grades immediately shown an effect by that. By the time she finished the year, she had straight A's and B's.
Wow.
Including in reading. She finished the year with a B in reading, and yet she's still told that she will not be graduating the third grade, and she will have to remain there.
Wow.
She's obviously extremely upset by this. And I mean, I'm really upset by it too, because I can't help but think of what else this is going to do to her. Because not only is she's not just upset because she's not going to the fourth grade, but now she's going to sit there and she, in her words, she feels like she's being called stupid.
Right.
She's not smart enough to go with the rest of the kids. and it's 11% of students failed the test.
Oh, wow.
So 11%.
So 11% of Indiana third graders are going to have to repeat the third grade?
Exactly.
Over one standardized test?
Over one standardized test. And so she's being held back, and we've tried discussing it with the school, and they pretty much say, hey, it's state law, tough shit.
So their hands are tied on the matter because it's state law.
Exactly.
Ruben, you there?
Yeah.
Weigh in on standardized testing for me. What are your thoughts?
Well, I can kind of see the concept of this test because, to be honest with you, we get some students up at my high school that, have just been passed on from grade to grade without the prerequisite skills that they needed. And as a result, we get, students at my high school that are reading at the elementary school level. But I don't think that, the standardized test is the only way to gauge how much a student has learned.
Right.
And, maybe what I was thinking, when I was hearing this story is maybe, 11%, that's not too much actually that failed when you think about it and compare it to other state tests. But maybe there could be like an appeal process for, somebody like that girl where maybe her and her teacher could turn in a portfolio in that special case to get her to pass to the fourth grade.
Before I don't get all the facts straight, there is somewhat of an appeals process. From what I understand, they can retake the test during summer school. And she has retaken the test. She just finished summer school about a week ago. She retook the test, but the results won't apparently be back until they already start school again the next year. So,
so there's no way for her to get into the fourth grade,
unless they from what I understand, she'll have to spend the first couple of days in the third grade, and then they're going to jump her up.
So she's going to look like a superhero.
I mean, it's upsetting. I didn't know about the appeals thing, and also apparently a parent can refuse to let their child be held back, but that child will be put into special education classes.
Special ed?
Yes.
Wow.
They will be given different testing than other students. It's to me, standardized testing is just a way of saying, hey,
it's like conform or be left behind.
Yeah, and children that young, I mean, they're going to be drastically different because anxiety.
Right.
I know growing up, I was the opposite. If you sent homework home with me, 0. I didn't care anything like that. Set me down with a test, 100 every time.
And some kids are the exact opposite.
Exactly.
Send them home with homework, and they're 100%.
That's a lot like what she is. When you throw in some pressure on this test, she's not going to, and she's a smart girl.
Right.
She's an extremely intelligent girl. But when you sit her down and you put pressure on her, and when they tell you, hey, you either pass this test or you fail this grade,
right.
She's not thinking about what's on that test now.
Right.
She's thinking, oh, well, now I'm going to be held back into the third grade.
That's awful.
And it was just very upsetting to me. But a lot of people don't know that test even really exists.
Right.
And
it's brand new this year, right?
When I was in the third grade, I actually was failing reading, and there were 3 levels. There was like a yellow, red, and white level, and I was in the very bottom level, and my mom went in and asked why I was getting bad grade in reading, and she said, well, he's behind, he's not doing this, blah, blah, blah. And so I spent a good 3 or 4 months sitting down every night, 3 hours a night with my mom, forcing me to do reading. I learned how to read, and I read all the time. I mean, look at the amount of, this is just probably 1/10 of my book collection. I have probably 4,000 books I love to read. And it was that school year that ignited my love of reading, but it wasn't because of a standardized test. It was because of the way that the school operated. We didn't.
It was like a teacher's oversight.
Right. It was the parent and the teacher and the local school working out these various curriculums, and I just don't understand how standardized testing is productive, and I feel bad for people like Ruben who are at the mercy of their students in a lot of ways, you know. And in a place like Manual High School that is improving but has had, you know, as low as like 30-some% of a graduation rate. I mean, Ruben, as far as a teacher goes, I mean, the standardized testing, and you're not here speaking on behalf of your school or your school district. You're just here as a private citizen. We should
with opinions
and experiences. So we should mention
have
that
every right to have an opinion.
Yep.
Right. So
and you have every right to express it.
I mean, do you feel standardized testing reflects your abilities as a teacher, or do you feel that it is just sort of a quick and easy answer?
I mean, I think it's useful to know where my students stand every year. And whether I have students in my class that can't read so I can help them. What I learned in my assessment class this year, my teacher at Marian University, she said that basically, I kind of agree with her opinion. She said that standardized tests are really good at diagnosing problems of our students, but they are no substitute to treat the problems of our students.
Right.
That's kind of like the way that I like to look at it right now.
Right. So basically our issue here is not so much that standardized testing exists, but that it exists as a barrier that has to be overcome as opposed to a measurement tool. Because I remember having standardized tests when I was younger, like iStep, but it was never actually my class, if I'm not mistaken, is the first year that it became a requirement to pass and graduate high school. You had to pass iStep at some point, like your sophomore or junior year, in order to get out of high school. And that was in 2000, or class of 2000, that experienced that change. And I think that my biggest issue is not that they're taking this reading test to assess their level of education, so much as that it, like carte blanche, holds everyone who fails it back, as opposed to there being, like we're saying, a process of appeals or common sense to be applied to the situation. Greg, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I have a much different approach to it. Is I see a society, and especially a school and education system, where self-worth is tied into educational achievement.
Yeah.
When there couldn't be more of a less. I mean, no. I mean, it is tied. You know, family incomes are tied to educational achievement. That's just the closest thing we have to a correlation. But in reality, it should be tied to work ethic. It's people that have that work ethic that achieve things. If your kid is not good in a subject, great. If I quizzed everyone on libertarian philosophy, they'd fail that test too.
I'd fail that test.
Exactly. So I mean, Ruben's in an unenviable position. There is no silver bullet to education, in my opinion. You need parents to be engaged, you need parents to have income and have time, and you need teachers who are effective, and you need ways to measure it. But in reality, I hate this idea that just because you're not in the top student in the class, you're not going to achieve big things. It sets up a false idea in the kid's head at an early age. Richard Branson of Virgin Airlines, Virgin, the entire brand, global brand, is dyslexic and cannot read. He didn't graduate after, I think he only went through 11 grades in England. And Andrew Carnegie, John Rockefeller, the great Mark Cuban was a C student at IU. I mean, time after time, the men that have really shaped America and the women, they weren't great students, but just because they lacked skills didn't mean they couldn't make up for it in other areas.
I mean, Chris Spangle was a solid C student and dropped out of IUPUI, and look at the great man he is today.
No, I mean, Spangle's, I'll be honest, Spangle's one of the most well-read, smart guys I know. Hands down. He absolutely is. Gena, from the times we've hung out, I feel the same way. But to say that you're not, I mean, a lot of the kids that I went to college with and graduated with, they wouldn't be people I would contact first for an original idea ever. They were fantastic at memorization, and they were terrible at critical thinking. The skills that really elevate you to the next level, ideating, being disciplined. It's that grit that takes you where you want to go in life. It has nothing to do with the horsepower.
Is ideating a word?
Mm-hmm. Ideating.
What does that mean?
It means to constantly create ideas.
Oh.
Spangle, you probably should have learned that in third grade
I
English.
thought that was called...
So let me revoke the most well-read.
I thought that
Back
was like...
in third grade.
I thought that was like thinking.
Strategery, okay?
I was...
Look, George Bush thought strategery was a word and he was president of the United States.
That is
I
fucking
dare
amazing.
you to do better.
There are so many Bushisms we could quote right now.
Of all the words I know, I've never heard ideating.
Ideating? Yeah.
I totally thought you were sitting there going, like, I was sitting there ideating.
Listen,
We got a phrase back in Texas.
Yeah, we got-
Fool me once.
Fool me once, shame on you.
That is my all-time favorite Bush
Fool
quote.
me twice, double shame on you.
Shame on you again. Ruben, what would you do different to fix this situation for somebody like a parent who's in the third grade and or whose kid is in the third grade and gets sent home over a test in the beginning of the year that doesn't even reflect their achievement throughout the remainder of the year?
Well, I think, as a teacher, administrator, whether even if you're like a college or an education policy advocate or, shaping education here in Indiana or another state that's doing similar type of things, you kind of, yes, I mean, I can kind of see, the reason why we wouldn't want to, pass somebody if it's not demonstrating third grade skills. But we need to think about, how we could get somebody who's not demonstrating third grade skills, how to get them caught back up to their classmates as quickly as possible. And if you don't have that plan, and you're proposing this iRead standardized test, and you don't have that plan, then you're going to get, a lot of dissatisfaction from the parents.
Yeah.
So maybe, making summer school mandatory, that could maybe be one thing that, we could look into.
Yeah, I do feel like in general we have to shift the focus from penalizing the child for not performing well on the test to raising or elevating the child's level of ability. Like that to me, repeating the same thing that they had done in the third grade does not seem nearly as productive.
Especially when the reading part is the only thing they struggle with.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying. She, other than reading, which she finished the school year with a B-. Other than that, straight A's.
Wow.
So, I mean, you're holding back a child who has a 3.8 GPA
Wow.
for one flunk test.
That is kind of astounding.
Ruben, let me ask you this. I mean, as a teacher, do you have a lot of flexibility in the way that you teach your subject, or are you pretty hamstrung by curriculum and by policies? And what kind of freedom do you have as a teacher to express the material?
Now, I'm a math teacher, so actually at the high school level, most of the math classes that I teach, so I teach Algebra 1, Geometry, and AP Calculus. Most of those courses, Geometry and AP Calculus, they do not have a state test tied to them, so I have a lot of freedom of what my curriculum is going to look like. AP Calculus, you have a College Board AP exam at the end of the year, and, AP Calculus is just like a Calc 1 course in a college and university. So, it's a pretty standard order, and there's not much creativity in, like, a math course because, you are expected to cover certain areas in every math course. But I feel like, at my school, fortunately, I've been able to, design some interesting projects for my students. And I've had, a lot of control about, how I assess my students at the geometry and the AP calculus level especially.
Are you given a curriculum and then you come up with the way that, the projects and, I had math teachers, I almost failed a math class because this one particular math teacher just decided that he would hand out the worksheet every day and then sit at his desk and then yell at you if you had a question about it. He was a pretty terrible teacher, and if I think of his name, I'll tell you, Greg.
We have no anonymity here. You suck and you know it.
Old crotchety guy with glasses.
Miss Vance Holt, Ben Davis.
Yeah.
Mr. Clapp.
Yep, I had Mr. Clapp. Matt Gillette absolutely hated that guy because Matt would actually try to learn something, and then he'd go, sit down. And he'd start the day like, and this is a great strategy for math teachers, Ruben. All right, so we have a pop quiz tomorrow, and I know you're all going to fail it, but we're going to take it anyways. It's like, really, dude, we're all going to fail it. So you've already told us we're stupid. But he was a terrible math teacher. But then Mr. Pearson would, really go to extraordinary lengths to make the material applicable to people. I mean, so as far as teaching style, is that all totally yours? I mean, is that something that you sit down and you think about at the beginning of the year saying, okay, I've got this curriculum, I've got this material, this is how I'm going to present it? Like, what's the process for you as a teacher?
I have more control over what I teach than I would if I were, teaching under IPS. Because I have no district curriculum map, I have no scrimmages to, focus on prepping my students for. We do have like acuity tests that students take every once in a while, but Manual started this year completely from scratch, pretty much. New principal, I'd say 90% of our teachers were brand new, and most of those 90% being first-year teachers like myself. And I was given the textbooks to my courses at the beginning of the year, and it was up to me to create my own curriculum and curriculum map. And ideally, good teachers are going to unit plan and plan backwards, and that was a skill that I quickly picked up. And at the end of the year, I decided to, reflect on how I taught, like geometry, for instance, and I actually created a curriculum map for my geometry course that other teachers in my high school and even other high schools in the charter schools network in Indianapolis could use.
Wow. So explain to me, why did they wipe out 90% of, I'm not up to date on this. Why did they start with a brand new force of teachers?
Okay, so Manual High School, has been a victim of, the state accountability system, and schools in Indiana have been rated for about 7 or 8 years, and they've been given, the equivalent of a letter grade.
Okay.
And every year that schools have been graded, Emmerich Manual has received an F.
Okay.
Or academic probation. And after year 7 or so, Tony Bennett, the previous superintendent, he decided that schools with 7 years in a row of failing status would be taken over by the state.
Okay.
Or have some other form of state intervention. And a lot of IPS schools fit that criteria. Now, about a year or two before the takeover, they contracted to the Department of Education, they contracted to a company to come in and, evaluate these schools.
Right. And let me guess, this private company thought that it would be highly cost effective to start with a brand new round of brand new teachers.
Well, it's called Cambridge Education, the company that evaluated these schools, and it was pretty much, something for, the State Department of Education to determine, whether these schools should be taken over by, the private companies.
Okay.
So 4 high schools in Indianapolis made that list. Arlington High School, T.C. Howe, and near Irvington, and Emmerich Manual, and Emma Donnan Middle School.
Okay.
And
when did
they have been, under a 5-year lease with private companies. So Howe, Donnan, and Manual are under Charter Schools USA. And every teacher, at that schools that were previously working for ITF, if they wanted to, or IPS, they had to reapply for their jobs if they wanted to stay at that school.
And 90% of them were not granted.
Now, the story that I heard, I do not know if this is accurate or not, is that the previous superintendent, Eugene White, of IPS, gathered all those teachers into a meeting room and said, if you go and leave us and go to Charter Schools USA, if you don't like Charter Schools USA and you come back to IPS, you're starting at the bottom of a pay scale and you'll be treated just like a first-year teacher.
Wow.
So we brainwashed a lot of teachers to not want to apply and stay at, Charter Schools USA schools or the Arlington High School, which is under Ed Power.
Wow.
So the school you teach at, is it a state school? Is it a public school?
It is a public school.
Okay.
Anybody can go in that neighborhood, but it's just run by a private company now.
Okay.
Called Charter Schools USA.
Since that's happened, since they reinstalled all these teachers, you said you're a first-year teacher?
Mm-hmm.
What has the difference been?
Well, see, it's his first year, so he wouldn't have known the previous. But yeah, okay. As far as the testing scores show, has there been an improvement this year, or has there been a decline?
Well, the scores have stayed pretty steady, actually, at Emmerich Manual.
Which I guess is honestly kind of impressive, considering that 90% of your teachers are brand new and this is their first year out. Because I've got to assume that there's a little bit of a learning curve. I know that when I was in school, the first-year teachers normally got taken advantage of in one way or another.
Well, the reason why I pose this question is because I don't know if you, Gena, if you know anything about what happened in Louisiana after Katrina. The majority of the school, before Katrina happened down there, Louisiana had the worst rated schools in America. I mean, they were it was an absolute failure down there. And after Katrina, they were not very quick on rebuilding the education system down there until a few private people started setting up schools and privately teaching kids. Now, they're not really private schools. A lot of them are charter schools. There's some private schools, but pretty much that entire state now is charter schools and stuff like that. They're, I mean, probably a good 500% better.
Okay.
And the teachers that they hired were not. I mean, a lot of the teachers never even went to college. A lot of them are just teachers who walked in off the streets, and they didn't go there because it's a steady job. They didn't decide to do it because they're not making money.
Right.
They did it because they want to educate kids. They want the people who live in that area to be able to grow up and be successful instead of thug like they've had for so long. And so when it comes from passion from a teacher, I mean, that shows in the kids' education. When a teacher goes in there willing to teach, wanting the child to be educated, that shows. And I'm sorry, sir, what is your name?
Ruben.
My name is Ruben Benzel.
Ruben, I want to thank you. If you are a first-year teacher, that tells me that you do have the passion to teach kids. And you want kids to be educated. And so that, I mean... It takes a lot to want to do that. And so many teachers, and I've got to ask you not to fall into this, so many teachers will go in there and, you know, they'll be in there for their 15th year of teaching. And it's a lot like Chris was saying.
Greg,
I'm sorry. First time I met these people.
big white guy.
Racist, not racist.
But it's just like Greg was saying, it's... I lost my train of thought with that.
No, that's okay. You were on a roll though.
I mean, it's
Don't fall into that trap of like mediocrity.
Yeah. Don't fall into the trap of being the teacher that says, "Hey, you know, here's what you guys need to read today. Here's the test. I'm going to sit at my desk. If there's any problems, take it up with your parents when you get home."
I've done this for 15 years. Why the hell can't you guys pick it up in 15 minutes?
Exactly.
I will tell you that I probably spend only at most 2% of the time at my desk when I'm teaching. So I'm always walking around. So I mean, I spend the whole day walking around a classroom.
Yeah. It's just to me. I just got out of high school.
That kind of grabbed all of our attention. Really, how old are you?
6 or 7 years ago. I'm 24.
Oh, okay.
I'm 23, so
You're 23 and a first-year teacher?
yeah.
That's about right.
I mean,
Yeah, that's when
awesome.
my sister graduated
Well, a
high school.
first-year teacher in high school?
Yeah.
I didn't expect that, but
There was no libertarian sabbatical with the normal people.
Yeah, like normal people go to college and then they don't take like 4 years off to go backpacking Iran.
oh.
Never mind.
I mean, that's awesome. I mean,
Still on break.
Yeah, that'll be a story time
but
with Gena.
there are so many teachers there that I don't even like calling them teachers. They're there to babysit your children while you're at work for 40 hours a week, and then, that's what I believe schools have become. And it's few and far between when you find a teacher who is there for teaching a child something, for educating a child. There's so few teachers with passion for education, and I believe that's what a big problem is, and I believe that's the solution to
No, I don't want to put it all on the shoulders of the teachers.
No. I'll be the first to say it. Education starts at home,
right?
And then farthering that education comes with will, and teachers are they're there to support that will,
right?
But yeah, that's.
No, I like where we're going with it. It's a tricky situation. I wish that there were, like Greg likes to use the phrase, the silver bullet solution. I wish that there were a really clean and quick solution where we could step in and say, hey, what the fuck is the problem here? Let's fix this. I don't think the solution is a tremendous amount of extra funding, because even if we did fundraise a great deal of money, it wouldn't end up in the classrooms. It would end up in the bureaucrats' pockets like it always does. As a matter of fact, here in Indiana, we just had a gentleman appointed to the education board whom it's actually interesting. I've worked with this gentleman on more than one occasion.
And by worked with, she means passionate affair.
As a matter of fact, she absolutely does not mean passionate affair.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was the other guy on the education board.
Fuck you, Greg.
Or girl, we don't discriminate.
We don't. We're completely non-discriminatory about our bedroom habits. Anyway, so a gentleman that I have previously worked with was appointed by the governor this week to head up part of the education board. And it's an interesting fit to me. It's not as though he is tremendously qualified for that position. I mean, we live in Indiana where the coroner doesn't have to have a college degree or a lick of medical training in order to be a coroner.
No, it's better than that. A few years ago when...
You have to be like 18 and registered to vote.
The Marion County coroner was Kenneth Ackles, or I think it was Ackles was his name. And he didn't have a medical degree. He didn't even have a college degree. He was very uneducated. He was completely... He was a disaster. He didn't know what he was doing. He eventually got kicked out by the Marion County Democrats, and the state government forced him out. He, in his second term, ran against a professor from IU, I believe it was, who had literally taught every licensed coroner in the state of Indiana. He was the professor. I met him one time. He looked like he drank formaldehyde. I mean, he was preserved himself.
One of the monsters.
Yeah, but he was incredibly brilliant. He was the guy who taught every coroner in the state, and he lost to Ackles.
Damn.
Ridiculous.
Well, so it's a popular.
Darn that democracy.
Right. Well, my point is that you don't have to have any kind of qualifications to hold a position like coroner, and you don't have to have any qualifications to hold a position on the state regulatory education board. And that just really bugs the shit out of me, because if you're not someone who knows a lick about education, you should not be making the decisions for every student in the state.
No, but he had the resume to back it up. It wasn't a question of how much he knew about education, is that he had done the right things to be a springboard where it couldn't be questioned. Come on now. He was part of, on paper, he was a great pick.
It depends on which side of the paper you're
and
looking at.
And it's a vocational training board.
Where are the blue-collar jobs of the future going, and what skills do we need to arm our graduates with? Where else could you find a better visionary than Cummins Engines in Columbus, Indiana?
Now, personal connections...
I'm not saying he's good. I'm saying that's what it looks like on paper.
Now, I'm just saying, look for yourselves and investigate the town of Columbus. Look at where the income comes from in the city of Columbus. Look at where Mike Pence comes from and where his campaign contributions derived from. And then tell me how much of his qualifications on paper mattered.
No, I know. I'm saying, like, politically feasible. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's all politics.
Heck, I don't care that board doesn't do anything. They get paid a salary to do nothing.
But they might pick which test determine whether or not a third grader can pass on to the next level.
That's how it got passed. The school board looked at it and they said,
sounds
whatever
like a good
the state
idea.
wants.
Right. It's a crock of shit sometimes.
Yeah, that was a Tony Bennett idea, right?
Who cares?
We
Honestly,
care.
why?
The parents of the students, because like it or not, when you're 60, the kids that are in elementary school right now are going to be running the show. Whether you like it or not, you need to care. Every motherfucker on this planet needs to care, because if we're churning out a bunch of ignorant children who aren't going to be able to contribute to society, we are churning out a bunch of, I mean, things could go horribly awry. We could end up with parasites. We could end up with ignorant children. We can end up with children who think that their entire goal in life is to get out, grab a blue collar job.
You know how you end up with ringworm? Uneducated children.
Goddamn right.
I can actually break this down into a libertarian way and tell you exactly why you do care.
But you're not going to do that, because this is story time with Gena, not libertarian hour.
A really quick way. Those 11% of students who get held back is 11% increase that you have to pay in your taxes for one more year.
No, because just because a kid doesn't pass a standardized test in 3rd grade doesn't mean he's not going to contribute to society. He's going to be a leech on the system.
I'm not talking about what he does in society. I'm talking about the money that is spent on him sitting in a classroom for one more year for 11% of the students in Indiana.
Money and profits.
I hate looking at it I hate looking at it like that. I hate saying that it's all the teachers' fault because they're not effective at their job and they look like they're lazy. I hate looking at it like it's the parents' fault because they don't care about their kids, and I hate looking at it like, well, don't you care about the community? One, I'm familiar with the area Ruben works in. Irvington's one of my favorite places in the city. Let me assure you that the Irvington schools, the people who care about that community, do not send their kids there. So that argument to me is out the door. 2, teachers do not deserve
right, but that's because they have that privilege.
You know, they do, because they know that their school system doesn't work.
Right, but what about the people that don't have that luxury?
Then let's give them school choice.
Okay, I'm not in
because for me,
Ruben, how do you feel on school choice?
Well, I actually did a lot of research on school choice, actually. I studied at Oberlin College and majored in economics there. And
quick
I did some papers on school choice and charter schools, and kind of, looked at the different arguments. And I think, the whole, point of having these charter schools is to, ideally, the proponents for charter schools, they want to see, having more competition between schools and, having a presence of charter schools and maybe private schools and, the public schools having more choices will, drive schools to improve and, ascend above mediocrity if they want to attract people to their school.
Okay, so you think it's a competitive issue. Greg, what do you think?
I look at it from an individual perspective. I know that every single kid has a different backstory and what different issues he's dealing with in his life. Nothing to me have I seen bigger gains in a kid, especially my own nephew, in changing environment. He was failing in IPS, now he's at Carmel, and he is an A student. Environment is huge for those that are able. Now, I'm not so Pollyanna, I believe everyone can change. A lot of people's parents don't care. They don't have the resources to send their kid to a Carmel or a Westfield. But education, you have to press all the buttons you have available. If I was Ruben, I would want the teachers union to say this. I agree that I will get your kid to a B level of reading, or he will meet his requirements as long as you adhere to this contract. My bonus will not, if you don't adhere to the conditions of this contract, my bonus will not be tied to this. If on the other side of that coin, I agree, as Ruben, I agree to meet certain requirements as a teacher in order to get performance pay. And then the third part of it for me is the environment, because so many kids come from a background where they can't even be successful. So maybe this is one of those times I look at a system of offering a subsidized route to a different school district and transport home from and to and from. I mean, I see that, like KIP model in Houston, Knowledge and Power. Mm-hmm. They have an extremely successful model. And Charterhouse USA, from what I've read, does not. Would you agree, Ruben?
I think it really depends on the administration.
Yeah.
We've been more successful at Manual than Howe because we have a good visionary administration and, a lot of really good teachers that really care about the students.
Oh, no. Yeah, but I meant as far as just like, there's a lot more variance as far as outcome with Charterhouse USA than there is with KIP because of KIP's obscene standards. Yeah.
All right.
Well, also, Charter Schools USA really hasn't worked very much with urban high schools.
Yeah.
Because a lot of their schools are charter schools in Florida, like in some of the middle income to upper middle income areas in Broward and Palm Beach County in South Florida.
They cherry picked to make it look like they had an impressive record.
All right, guys, we got to wrap this up because this is normally a half-an-hour show, and we've got an hour on nothing but education, which I'm proud of us. Well done. In fact, this is our non-political political hour.
I'd say that education is not political. I mean, there's politics
shouldn't
to
be.
it, but
I guess it was just such a major part of my campaign platform that, to me, it's entirely political. That's like going back down the rabbit hole. Yes, educating them babies. Yeah. All right. Well, Ruben, thank you so much for joining us. I really think you added a lot.
Thanks for having me.
It was a lot of fun. Tell the people where we met.
So I'm at the art museum, actually, like in the 100 Acres.
Yeah. And what was I doing?
Swinging.
How long was I playing on the swing set, Ruben?
Oh yeah, that's what they.
I don't know.
I was on the swing set when he arrived, and then he walked around the entire length of the park, and he comes back through, and I'm still swinging on the same swing.
Gina is the only adult that can get away with playing on a playground.
Every day.
Every day
I can.
They're like, oh, that little girl's just been on the swing so long with her pigtails.
So anyway, Ruben and I struck up a conversation, and apparently it was so that I could have him on my show in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, and we might call on you again if we do another topic of this nature. Sound good?
All right.
All right. Thanks.
You guys have a good evening.
You too. All right. So next topic I want to weigh in on, and mainly because as we are recording this, I am checking the We Are Libertarians Facebook page, and Spangle Bear just posted a picture from where he's sitting of me with a microphone and headphones on, right? And the first thing that comes up is the word boobages.
Right, from Maya.
We should mention I'm not in anything obscene. I'm sitting here in a tank top. There's a bathing suit underneath it because I went swimming before I came here.
A Wonder Woman bathing suit.
Well, and the Wonder Woman bathing suit is the shit. There's no question about
Mentioned
that.
on a previous story time with Gena. I have a problem with this comment thread too that I'd like to address, but you first.
No, we're going to get there. So the comment under that says sex sells. Now here's what bothers me. Why does every man, and apparently Maya, look at a woman in a photograph, and if she looks in any way effeminate or there's nothing sexy about this photo. I'm looking at this photo.
I'm trying to find it to be the judge of that.
I think it's a nice picture of you. I mean, there is what could possibly be considered cleavage.
Right. I mean,
but it is not meant to be. I did not take and post the photo because it was.
No.
Oh, I'm selling sex to get people to go to download your podcast. I posted it because, hey, look, Gena's hosting a podcast, and people should go download it.
Right. So
why does it have to be sexual when you look at that photo?
Exactly. What is the male psyche that makes you think that because a woman is posing for a photo, her intention is to seduce you? For example, I posted a profile picture.
Right.
Where it's me sitting on my patio with a cigarette, my bangs are over, and people are like, oh, that's so grungy, and oh, that's so this, that, and the other. And one of my friends posted on his status that it was something to the effect of he couldn't understand why a pretty woman wouldn't smile in her profile picture. It was so not sexy, and that it looked kind of like Gary Sinise in drag. I'll be the first to admit, go look at that picture on my profile. It looks kind of like Gary Sinise in drag. It really does. But
Lieutenant Dan.
But do you know why? But I left it there.
Gena, you ain't got no legs.
But I did have legs. Here's the thing, though. Why did he assume that my intention was to seduce him? The first thing that I posted was, I'm certain that she gives a fuck about your opinion because it was clearly her intention to entrap you.
Right.
You know, what is it about guys or people in general that the assumption is if a girl, and I've read this before, a pretty girl takes an ugly picture. Yes, that's the one. So if a pretty girl takes an ugly picture, it's like, fuck you. If a female has a picture taken of her, why is it automatically assumed that her intention is to look sexy, attractive, or appealing to you?
And it really bothers me that people would think that my intention, it makes... When I read that, I was like, well, that was not my intention, and I know that's not... Gena would not want that to be used as, I just it
And
really
where is sex in that photo?
it
for
really pisses me off.
real? Okay, thank you.
It really kind of does.
It was
You're
getting
totally
under my skin,
because
too.
you're totally right, and I would like you to write an angrily worded comment to that person, and I'll show you how here in just a second under your own name, because
Okay.
that really annoyed me too. Like,
Yeah.
that is not my intention of taking that photo. I would never, ever, ever, ever use you in that way. Just like I wouldn't use Greg in, with his cleavage out
Right.
to try and promote the podcast.
You
like,
can use me.
That's why we don't have 10 million listeners.
that's right. We don't have 10 million listeners because we have not used Greg's boobs. But
It is kind of insulting. Whether
It
he
is.
realizes it or not, he's implying that the only reason that I'm valuable to this show is because I have a sex appeal.
exactly.
As though I have nothing else to bring to the table.
And we all know that Joe Ruiz is the reason that he is the sex appeal of the We Are Libertarians crew.
I honestly don't believe that guy thinks the only thing you have to bring to the table is your sex appeal. I think the only thing that guy has to bring to the table is thoughts of sex appeal.
Nice.
I don't think it's a question of you. I think that we should turn this around, and it's a question of him.
It's a reflection of him.
Exactly. How come that's what he has to think about
Right.
every single time he sees a photo of a girl, or whoever's seen the picture of you sitting on the porch with the bangs or whatever? That's a question on them. How come in their
Yeah, if he looks
sad...
at that sexy ass picture and sees Gary Sinise in drag, what's wrong with him?
How come,
Yeah.
how come in a person's sad, pathetic life, they can't just simply look at a photo of any person without having to say, I need to find something sexy about this? Is your life that sad? Are you that lonely?
I've really been thinking a lot about this too, because did you see the Dustin Hoffman clip that I posted in the group?
Was
bit.
it the
It's
one about where he was shooting
Interesting
bosom-
looking women.
Yeah.
Yeah, where Dustin Hoffman gave an
Tootsie.
Yeah, Tootsie. And this was for AFI, where the clip was. And he was talking about how he dressed up, and he only wanted it to do if he could pass as a woman. And so Tootsie is where he dresses up as a female to get a job, I think.
Acting job. It was like, yeah.
And so he dressed up as Tootsie, and he said, I wasn't a pretty woman, but I was an interesting-looking woman. And there was a lot to me behind that. And I realized that when I went out in the world, I wasn't treated like I was Dustin Hoffman or like I was a male. I was treated like I was an uninteresting woman. I was interesting looking, but I wasn't pretty, and therefore I didn't get a lot of attention. And I really felt, for the first time in my life, I started crying, and he tears up as he's telling the story, saying, I realized all the interesting-looking women that I had completely ignored over the course of my life because they weren't attractive enough. And
Isn't that
how many
crazy?
how many great companions and friends did I miss because I was shallow?
It's true.
And it just, like, I've started to, just over the last month especially, just sit there and go, maybe it's because I'm getting older and crotchetier. Like, why do we have to have that bosomy, what's the buxom, the cat daddy girl, Kate Upton? Why do we need Hardee's? Did they really need Kate Upton's boobs to sell Hardee's burgers? Like, really? Maybe I'm just getting older and more conservative.
Shouldn't we just assume that the product is shitty, the sexier the model is?
I think
because
I don't know if this resonates with you guys. You're a little young yet, and Greg, you're just an old pervert. But it just gets exhausting, the amount of sex that is sold to you. As a man, you're just like, I'm just overstimulated and I'm tired of it. Like,
That's okay. That's why they made Viagra.
now listen here, I'm a man. I'm not having problems in that area, sir. I'll show you. But
no, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
There comes a point when hypersexualization is a turn off.
it's like, do I just really need to see another pair of boobs?
right.
Yes, I do.
I was
I'm
gonna
just
say,
kidding.
Why not?
I'm just kidding. Greg, take your shirt off. Thank you.
I live in a world with boys. It blows them. Like, I'm trying to understand the male psyche. I really make a genuine, concerted effort, even though I know I never will.
Can you take off those earphones? I need to give you a wet willy.
No.
No, but I really like that that made me mad, because it makes it look like that's what I was trying to do. That's what the page is trying to do. At We Are Libertarians page, which is where the photo's at. It's like, I was not trying to post a photo of Gena's boobs.
Right. No, I mean, and if you look at it, it's all about my pigtails, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
just what a crazy show this has been.
Mm-hmm.
Before we wrap it up, there is one official story time with Gina's story that I'm going to share, and that
Can
is.
I get like the man's perspective? I feel like I'm in a.
Oh yeah, okay,
podcast.
fine. We're going to weigh in.
One,
with
we are
Greg
genetically predisposed to be attracted to women with certain genetic, or I mean, certain
inalienable rights.
No, certain physical attributes.
Cans.
No, I mean there's a certain like ratio of hip and breast. I mean, we have certain things built in. So when you're talking about for the purposes of mating, those are strong natural urges you fight. When you're talking about as far as friendship and companions, like Spangle was talking about, that's just you being shallow. I feel like there's a big distinction that needs to be made. You're not going to marry someone. You are not going to marry someone that you don't at least feel the slightest bit of attraction to, right?
Right.
Never going to do that.
Unless
but as a friend,
you're skeevy and he's loaded or some kind
Yeah.
of like you will never convince me that Anna Nicole Smith was physically attracted to that Howard guy. That
no,
just
she
won't
was
happen.
just economically rational.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
I mean, that's the way she analyzed it.
Okay.
But like for instance, like that guy right there that commented on your picture right there.
Right.
Clearly, he is attracted to you.
Okay, there's one way to take it.
He'd have never made that comment if he saw you as a friend or as a non-sexual object. So, like for his worth, Spangle taking that picture, it was just purely, hey, Gena's on the podcast. This is a great picture. We're going to take it. Blah 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 blah. But for that guy, it was clearly more of, hey, I'm interested in Gena. I can't believe she took that picture. Now I'm so disappointed.
Okay.
Right. So now, but I mean, so it can't just be guys. There are two huge distinctions: the friend and the guy that sees you as a sexual object.
Okay, so what is that boundary? Because I've had interesting conversations because I have, in my past, I was a dance teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took that responsibility probably a little too seriously, in that I felt like I was sort of a role model for a generation of young girls who were all looking up to me.
Sure.
And even though I was a dance teacher and I was running around in leotards all the time, their dads had to make eye contact with me half naked on the regular. So when it came to things like my online presence, I was very careful about the level of, nudity or exposure that I would allow myself to be photographed and shared online with.
Totally.
Because there was an incident where one of my dance kids sexted someone at school, and she was just completely slut-shamed over it at like 15, 16 years old. So it was a pretty traumatic event. And it's not as though I condoned what happened to her, the way that she was treated, but as someone who felt as though they were setting an example, I didn't want to set the example that you should be running around taking naked photos of yourself.
Sure.
Does this make sense? So I'm someone who's been kind of cautious of the type.
Yeah,
of
you have
a
awareness because of your experiences of it.
Right.
Yeah.
So in that way, I guess
It should totally
bothersome to me when people assume that I'm flaunting myself sexually in order to gain some sort of favor, I guess, from the audience or whatever, because I don't need to.
It totally shouldn't bother you ever. One, because
That's true.
you're an individual. You can live your life exactly how you see fit.
You've seen me in cop gear. I'm ready to go full riot at this point. It's been a couple years of having my ass worn down psychologically.
Well, you shouldn't, because I mean,
Glad you added psychologically there, because I was about to
Because you
say.
know it hasn't been literally.
Yeah. I don't know anything.
no, but I mean, you absolutely shouldn't, because there's always that distinction that should be made. Whenever a guy makes a comment like that or comments on your appearance, it's clearly not where he sees you as purely a friend. About the only time you can be sure is if they are 100% homosexual and have never dabbled with the other sex.
Okay, so I've got a lot of homosexual friends, and I've got a few friends that I guess you would say were friend zoned.
Uh-huh.
But I have at least one who has told me that, and he might have been fucking with me, but that he just couldn't think of me that way because I present myself in such a pure manner, which is kind of bullshit, because that particular guy has hung out with me on occasions where there's nothing pure about my behavior.
Oh no, that's the push away technique. That's that's see through. That's boring.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, God, come on now. No, but
That's that
yeah,
Prince
totally.
of Persuasion bullshit.
Yeah, it's the the pull one step forward, two steps back.
Yeah.
But no, like for a guy, if he's going to comment on one, all guys are going to look at a female and immediately group you into friend, like Dustin Hoffman said, non-interesting, or sexual target. It's just our genetic.
So are you all just
predisposition.
predators? Is that how this works?
Oh, for sure. We're all cavemen
All right.
genetically. I mean, we all wear all these. You're conditioned by society and all these things, but underneath, you took this stuff away and there weren't repercussions. It'd be madness. There'd be women over shoulders taking them back to the cave all day.
You're so fucked up. I love you.
No, I mean, I can sit here and give you the PC answer, but if I see a girl
I
that
would
I'm
never
just like,
let you do that.
that girl is incredible, I'm going to go full caveman and go, what would you do? You go flirt with her, buy her a drink, do anything you could do to show off and display worth, right? For a girl, anytime you see a guy you like, what are you going to do? You're going to go up, flirt with him, probably wear a push-up bra, and display worth. I am an attractive sexual object.
I don't know, because the
Relationships
again,
can come
I'm
out of the
interesting.
friend.
I'm different, but I can't say that I have ever like locked in and targeted an individual and then like pursued them with the intention of seducing them. It's just never really been my thing. If we're compatible, we'll be compatible. We'll be friends long enough for you to get in my pants, and then we'll just fuck like bunnies until something gives or we get married.
See, that just shows me that you are a slow roller. You slow play it. You see if you can stand the person before you enter into a relationship.
That's not always the case. The man that I married, I only knew him for maybe 3 to 6 months, and I mean, well, no, that's not true, because I knew him. I knew him prior to giving him the first date. Like, he never got to the first date until he had been through enough of a rigorous.
You tested him to see
Kinda.
where it's worthy mate. No, it's.
I mean, yeah, okay.
No,
kinda.
totally, you did. Everyone does that kind of stuff.
He might have got a couple over.
You
on
can
me.
talk about PC and how we should all be androgynous and we're all pseudo males and pseudo females and life will be harmonious when we're all
I'm
just
definitely
one.
not down with
Yeah.
androgyny personally.
No, but I mean, a guy sees a girl, he's going to do everything he can to impress her. A girl sees a guy, she's going to do everything she can to lure him if she sees him as a desirable mate. Now, if it's a friend, they don't care.
Yeah, okay.
That's
All
the
right,
way.
fair enough.
There's a
I commented
distinction.
on the post and I shared our sentiment, and then I shared your sentiment.
Yeah.
Plus, Greg is offended that no one's made the same comment about him when we shared a photo of him.
Oh, yeah.
Sex sells when we post photos of Greg.
Don't worry.
Right.
You can go on Craigslist and purchase my time. Just don't shoot me in the neck.
I bet 99%.
Well, you better put out if I'm.
Yeah, right?
I bet
Gina,
99
don't shoot me in the neck when I don't put out.
I bet most people were like, "Is that what Greg looks like? I thought he looked totally different."
Right.
Because we never have Greg
I'm
on the
Charlie.
camera. He's
I'm
never in
Charlie.
the photos.
All right, so just before we wrap up, story time with Gena. Greg, a few minutes ago, you mentioned the Munsters, if I'm not mistaken.
I did.
Funny story. So, over 10 years ago.
I had sex with Eddie Munster.
Okay, so I did not have sex with Eddie Munster, but here's how close this goes. So
He gave you the rigor mortis.
No. I was attending a recording of a talk radio show in Gardena, California.
Okay.
So we were at the Hustler Casino in Gardena, California, and they were interviewing Dick Smothers Jr. So you've heard of the Smothers Brothers?
Oh, God,
the
yeah,
band?
with the
Okay.
yo-yos.
Yeah. Okay, so Dick Smothers' son, Dick Smothers Jr., is in the porn industry. And when this particular talk radio duo found out about that, they booked him because it was fucking hilarious to have Dick Smothers Jr. on. And he came in and he talked or whatever. And I had been a regular contributor to the show over the telephone. We had never met. Although when I got there that evening, it was very clear to me that one of the co-hosts was taken with me. And when that happens, when I can tell when a person is physically attracted to me, especially a guy that doesn't have a tremendous amount of self-confidence or a stutterer, because they'll begin to stutter or they'll begin to shake a little. And this was totally happening with this guy. So I was trying to give him his distance because I could tell that I was making him uncomfortable. I'm outside smoking, and Dick Smothers Jr. comes over to join me. And then he strikes up a conversation. We exchange contact information. He says to me a bit later, "Do you want to come back and meet my buddy?" And I go
My
around.
penis.
No. It wasn't anything like that. We were smoking cigarettes, and he thought that it might be fun to smoke something else. And again, this was over 10 years ago in California, so it's well beyond.
Andrew Jackson's Wheel of Cheese.
Yes. So the wheel of cheese is brought out, and who should show up smoking the joint but Eddie Munster. Eddie fucking Munster. No shit. So Gena smoked weed with Eddie fucking Munster behind the Gardena Casino. Well
That
over 10 years ago. It's beyond the
is-
statute of limitations. Right? Shit that.
The Smother Brothers. And
Yeah, the Smothers Brothers, porn, Eddie Munster, cigarettes, and pot in
Right.
the Hustler Club.
How awesome is story time with Gena?
Wow.
So the funniest part is the email that I got when I returned to my office on Monday morning from.
Vivid.
Oh, just.
did it have a black leather couch?
No. It went to something to this effect. I understand. Now, mind you, I had been 21 for about 3 months, if that. And it was like, I understand if you're not ready for a serious relationship with someone who's in the porn industry because most women can't handle it and the insecurities, blah, 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 blah. And if we would be marriage material, and I'm like, yo, we hung out for 10 minutes and smoked a joint and you're talking about marriage. Listen,
is this
porn
Eddie
guy.
Munster in the porn industry?
No,
Smothers
not
Jr.
to my knowledge.
Was this Lexington Steel?
I'm a little.
No.
Mr. Marcus?
No.
Your encyclopedic knowledge of male porn stars is a bit off-putting.
I only know black male porn stars, too.
Racist.
Shaft.
Master of the porniverse?
Excellent. So anyway, does that count as a story time with Gena's story?
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Exceptional. So who's the coolest guy you ever smoked pot with? Oh, Spangle, you've never played.
No.
Josh? Allegedly?
Oh, you know what?
And several years ago?
I was going to slip and I was going to say
I
it, but
know.
I just realized that if I named the person, I could get them into trouble. So I
So don't
can't-
do that.
I can't
Just
do that.
kidding. But I bet it's cool.
I'll tell you afterwards.
All right.
It's great.
That's a deal.
It was also my first time.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah, this
and
is definitely
and one
not
of my
my
only
first time.
because I haven't really
Well,
delved in it since.
yeah, me either. I mean, I gave it up 10 years ago for sure. Nobody laugh. Fuck you guys. All right, so we need to get some awesome outro
I'm
music.
just saying, next time, wait until you at least leave my apartment. Thank you.
For what, Kippy? Your
Smoking
mom?
weed and
Oh, well, yeah.
churning the queef.
Churning the queef. You'd have to. What were we? That was
I made
the
it.
Uncontrollables, right? We were Spangle
Yeah.
and I recorded the Uncontrollables for Maya the other day because we were concerned about her frame of mind after her awesome activities over the weekend.
Her
and
mind expansion, and so I made a joke.
And here's the
Yeah.
thing: Spangle's so completely ignorant on all things.
I totally knew. I knew exactly what I was saying because
Yeah,
I
go back and listen to it. You could hear him get totally caught up in it. He was like, "What's that dust, that queef that the weed makes?"
No, no, I know because I go on Reddit and I see the little tin cans of keef and I see it spelled out on, and so my third grade brain goes, "It sounds like queef," and so I said the queef, acting like I didn't know what I was talking about, and they were like, "Oh, that's hilarious."
Well, you fooled me because I thought you were an idiot.
I thought you were an idiot. I thought you got vagina farts mixed up with
Vagina farts. Okay, so I would say today was a pretty effective show.
It was very effective at something.
Right. We told stories. It was like 2 to 3 times longer than it normally was. We got enchiladas.
Roughly
we talked
3.
about education. We talked about
Queefs.
queefs. We definitely covered inappropriate things with 1960s child television stars.
Well, you ranted about women's rights.
Gena's White House would include the masquerade ball, and we never really got into how
Yep.
fucking cool that would be to have all of your foreign dignitaries playing games. Imagine how much tension it would diffuse if you guys got together and played under the guise of being somebody else. If you had to have an incredible mask, nobody could really tell who you were. Like, would it matter? Like, could you have dignitaries rubbing elbows, not knowing who one another is? How much fucking fun would that be? What else did we cover? Oh, and most especially Texas. What the fuck? Thank you guys
Calm down.
so much for joining us on this episode of Storytime with Gena. If you stuck with me this long, I'm really proud of you, and I appreciate your patronage. Please feel free to catch us on We Are Libertarians. and
/radio.
/radio. And don't get me started on hashtags. Hashtags are worthless. Hashtag who does this. And
Goodbye.
yeah, okay, fine. Goodbye. Nice playing.